Oh, it's fine. Everything's fine. So, the ukulele. This thing right here. This thing. We all know it, right? We all know what it looks like. We're familiar. We all heard Riptide, right? Like we know that song. Cool. Today we're gonna talk about the history of the ukulele. In around 1850, these Portuguese immigrants came over to Hawaii because of the sugarcane plantations. And there were a ton of Portuguese immigrants who all brought their instruments. The original name for it is don't offend anyone. Braguina, Braguina, or the Machete de Braga. And I think that one's right. And then it was changed to the ukulele when it gained popularity in Hawaii. And there's two stories kind of how the name ukulele came to be. One of them is it was called ukulele for jumping flea because of how people's fingers moved around on the fretboard. But that it's more of like a story. The preferred translation is the gift that came here, because the Queen of Hawaii herself apparently came up with that name. So we start in the 1850s, and in the 1890s it gets popular, and slowly, and then bam, 1915 hits. And the ukulele starts gaining a ton of popularity because it reaches mainland America. This is due to tourism increases to Hawaii and selling the idea that Hawaii was a magical tropical paradise that included a new instrument that people began to mass produce outside of Hawaii. And then from the 1920s to 1930s, everyone just loves the ukulele. Ukulele sales ended up soaring. And the reason because of that is things like brass instruments and pianos and accordions, they all became super expensive during the Great Depression. But little like plastic ukuleles were way cheaper. I should also say, this isn't plastic. This is wood. The 1940s actually had a really big impact on the ukulele as well, surprisingly. Because, you know, there was a war going on. So I don't think that you would feel that like this little wooden instrument would have kind of an impact on that. But the reason it was so impactful was it might not show on the camera just due to perception, but like this is a relatively small instrument. Like you tuck it into your arm essentially and you play. The reason it became so popular during World War II is because it could fit into a soldier's kit bag and was seen as a morale booster. And then 1950s hits, everybody has a plastic ukulele. Everybody is uking it up. No, it was a relatively cheap instrument. I think it was like $5.95 to buy like a little plastic ukulele. There was even a TV show hosted by Arthur Godfrey who basically just gave little ukulele lessons to people in their homes through TV. And the ukulele was also played by a lot of bigger stars like Bing Crosby and of course the king himself, Elvis Presley, in his Blue Hawaii movie. That's the story of our love. Ever since. However, the 60s presented a new challenge, the electric guitar. And along with the electric guitar came a new style of music, rock and roll. And unfortunately, the only person really keeping the ukulele alive in the 60s was Tiny Tim. Does that name ring a bell for some of you? Does this maybe this very specific song that I'm about to play, maybe that will remind you who he is. Tiptoe through the window, by the window, that is where I'll be. Come tiptoe through the tulips with me. Oh. But essentially, due to Tiny Tim's hauntingly weird aesthetic and voice, it really just solidified the death of the ukulele and it got reduced down to weirdo status. And even though he created one of the most iconic ukulele songs, he basically led the instrument to its death. What a way to fucking go. If my casket gets lowered down to the ground while Tiptoe Through the Tulips is playing, I'm coming back to fucking life. I can't. And of course, the 70s happen. Rock and roll and other genres from rock and roll explode, and we meet the ukulele's tragic end. 1980s, something really weird happened. Well, a couple weird things happened actually. First one, New York hipsters decided to ironically adopt the ukulele as the perfect post-punk instrument. What a tongue twister! A lot of the older and more classically now known rock and rollers also wanted more of a folksy sound to their songs, and the ukulele provided that more than any kind of guitar could. Also, there was a Hawaiian music revival in the 1980s and 90s that inspired Hawaiian kids to rediscover the instrument and play it on their own terms. They managed to mix together Hawaiian folk music and mainstream pop with the ukulele. The 90s were interesting simply because the internet started to exist and ukulele players were so fucking excited. Basically, people could create like little online forums and platforms to talk to people and create ukulele groups where people could go and play ukulele, learn about it, talk about their experiences with it, and just kind of like all hang out in like somebody's basement essentially and learn how to strum Nirvana songs, which honestly, that wouldn't have been the weirdest thing, and then I take that back. That's not weird at all considering it was the 90s. Then, 2005 comes along. No, we were all born. We were all born. How long ago was 2005? 5,940 days. That doesn't help. Years. Oh my god, kids that were born 2005 are 17. I'm tired. 2005 happens, and the invention of something huge helps skyrocket the ukulele back into popularity. YouTube. I wanna be the very best, like no one ever was. Ooh, buddy. YouTube becomes a platform for people to post lessons and little ukulele covers. It's how a lot of people actually got discovered, was posting music covers online. We all remember Justin Bieber before he was him. That's so mean, actually. Okay, no. In fact, one of the first viral videos to ever appear on YouTube was of someone playing the ukulele. If I get asked by a single person if I can play that song, the answer is no, and I will throw punch you. Bro, I got one strumming pattern. I got one strumming pattern and 10 chords, buddy. And in 2015, a lot of people start playing the ukulele and like giving lessons.
Oh, it's me, the ukulele teacher.
And it gets into like mainstream songs.
I now know my name.
And covers of songs.
Hard to believe that it's not over tonight.
And now it's giant. I'm sure that we've all been to a school talent show where there's been like a little ukulele group of people thinking who they can sing and play the ukulele at the same time, and they realize very quickly that they can't. We've all heard a really shitty version of Somewhere Over the Rainbow or Riptide, right? We've all heard that. Fun fact, I never learned Riptide, and I did that on purpose. So great, I love Vance Joy. Fantastic artist. If you ask me to play Riptide, I'll kill you. So yeah, that's kind of the history of our little ukulele. I've also just realized this is the first time that Brian's gonna see my editing and how I do videos. This is the most I've talked during his class, I think, actually. That's saying a lot. Jesus Christ. So, now let's talk about the instrument itself. Alrighty, so, instrument, ukulele. Typically made out of wood, can be made out of plastic for cheap manufacturing and for a cheaper sound. There's different kinds of wood. Usually ones made in Hawaii use koa wood, but there's also like mahogany and I think spruce as well is also typically used. There are 4 strings in comparison to the guitar, which has 6. Typically, the strings are tuned to G, C, E, and A. So this main squiggly part, this is called the body. This entire thing here, the long thing, nobody edit that. This is called the neck of it. These are the tuners. This is called the sound hole. This is called the bridge. This is where all the strings kind of like tie together. Not together, but like they tie onto it so that they don't go flying everywhere. Speaking of strings, these are the strings. This front part of the neck here is called the fretboard. And these little things here, the little rectangles, are called frets. They're essentially how you tell where you are in the ukulele, so that way you know where you can either put your capo, which is this thing, which changes the key that you're in without having to retune your instrument, or it also lets you just also. It lets you know where you're supposed to play your chords. If someone tells you to play a C, which is the 4th string on the 3rd fret, you know you have to count 1, 2, 3, and then go to the last string to make a C chord. And yes, this thing here is called the nut. Get it out of your systems now. No, don't get out of your systems. We're in class. No, poor choice of words, I'm sorry. And essentially how it works is you make different little patterns where you strum, or you can pick certain ones. And that's kind of it. Like that's that. There's also a ton of different kinds of ukuleles, like way more than I actually thought when I started this project. There's a guitar ukulele, which is called a guitalele. There's a banjo ukulele, because of fucking course there is. And guess what it's called? A banjo-lele. There's an electric ukulele, which you can plug in, and it's apparently really cool because you can like put distortion on it and use pedals like you would a guitar, and it can turn to like a rock and roll ukulele, and that's really cool to me. There is a bass ukulele, which is fucking giant apparently, and I didn't know. A sopranino, which is essentially, it's a very small ukulele, even smaller than the soprano ukulele, which we'll get to in a second. And then of course there's 4 main kinds of ukuleles that you will often see. This is a soprano ukulele. It's very small, as you can see. Next up we have the concert ukulele, which you can see is a little bigger. And this one is made out of a little bit better quality wood. The one that I wasn't able to get a hold of was a tenor ukulele. It is the deepest of these 3 kind of ukuleles, because the next one is a doozy. This is a baritone ukulele, and a lot of people that I've talked to have mistaken it for a guitar just because it literally looks like a small guitar. This one doesn't really fit under my arm, but you can hear the difference between and this. So the reason that this has such a deeper tone is because this is actually tuned to the last 4 strings of a guitar, which means that for the soprano, concert, and tenor ukulele, all the chord shapes for those, you would be able to play all 3 of those the same. But if you were to play a C on this, it wouldn't be a C on this. A C on a soprano, concert, or tenor ukulele, as we were saying, is 3rd fret, last string. If I were to play that on the baritone ukulele, it sounds similar, but it's not a C actually. This is a C, which is also an F chord, and also if you want to play a G, that's technically a D on this, and it just keeps going, and I find it really fascinating. This is basically just a guitar missing the top 2 strings. So a D chord is played like this on a guitar, which is why this is also a D on the baritone. If you wanted to play a G, that's what the C shape would come in. That's because for a guitar, you would use the top 2 strings to create the G chord. Now, trying to find players for each of these 4 ukuleles, or any ukulele at all, is kind of interesting. There are obviously some people that you will know. Is, for example, who does an amazing cover, Somewhere Over the Rainbow and What a Wonderful World. By the way, I learned that him and his partner were the bassists for the Lava short. Then there's some historic figures as well, as you should know. There's George Formby, who did the split stroke, which I just learned about today. A split stroke is essentially you're going down and then hitting the last 2 strings on your way up, and then just plucking, almost like tapping the top one. I'm a ukulele master. I didn't practice that shit. There's Cliff Edwards, who also went by Ukulele Ike.
Some folks want a doctor.
Fun fact, he was also the voice of Jiminy Cricket. There's Auntie Genoa Kiwi? K-E-A-W-E. I did look up how to say it, but she was known for these incredible law notes. She was playing for over 60 years on this ukulele, and she was an advocate for preserving Hawaiian music and culture. There's also May Singy Breen, who's known as the ukulele lady, and she ended up arranging more ukulele music and songs than anybody else. Now we're going to talk about some famous people who play each kind of ukulele. The main four, we're not going to go through all 10 of them, okay? I promise I won't do that. The only person that I really know who plays the baritone ukulele after researching it is Dodie. There's soprano ukulele players, so Tiny Tim, and MXMtoon, who you probably know from Prom Dress as well.
I'm sitting here crying in my prom dress. I'd be the prom queen if crying was a
There's concert ukulele players. I couldn't really find a lot for that. Tenor ukulele players are where it's at. From what I can tell, it is the most commonly used ukulele. Walk Off the Earth uses it. Thomas Sanders, Vance Joy, Tyler Joseph from 21 Pilots. I do also just really want to quickly touch on bass ukulele players because, oh my god, I didn't realize how many famous people there were. Chris Bow from Vampire Weekend, Jacob Collier, Nicole Rowe from Panic at the Disco, and Tony Russell and Rob Gehringer from Kendrick Lamar all play a bass ukulele or a U-bass. Also, the only people that I could find that really played all of these, there is this group called the Ukulele Orchestra of Great Britain. I shit you not. It's around 8 people, I think, all playing different kinds of ukuleles, and they do arrangements of songs. I need you to believe that this is a real group. There's a real group of Brits out there. They're watching and they're stuck. There's a real group of Brits out there who all play the ukulele together. And now, of course, the ukulele is huge. Everyone knows the ukulele now. It's just started as this tiny little Portuguese instrument, and now it's massive. And a lot of the articles I read, there were a ton of quotes about asking people why they think the ukulele got so big. How did it suddenly come back to life, essentially? And the main reason behind it is the accessibility. In every single way. There's a lot of hierarchy in guitar players and guitar playing world. I've been playing for 5 years. Oh my god, I've been playing for 5 years. I still can't hit a B minor chord. And there's so much hierarchy in whether or not you can do certain things or the style that you play. Are you self-taught? Did you have to take lessons? Did you have the money to take lessons, or did you have to work it all out yourself? And there's so much elitism in the guitar world, and I don't think people often realize that. If you play the guitar, you know that you're going to be judged for how you play the guitar and how well you can play it. However, ukulele, there's so much more freedom to it because there's no right or wrong way to play it. I like to argue that there's no right or wrong way to play any instrument, to be completely honest, as long as it makes you happy and you're able to pursue your craft. And that is my little presentation here. Solid. Is there any questions? No? Great. I explained everything perfectly. Brian should give me an A. Thank you. Thank you. I 100% agree. I've never been super confident in my guitar playing abilities or my piano playing abilities or my cello. Oh god, we don't talk about the cello days. Those are dark days. I never really had a lot of confidence in my playing, and this little instrument makes me feel a lot better about it. Not to mention, the ukulele is so much easier to take around. Don't get me wrong, guitars are easy to lug around and stuff, but being able just to fit this little thing inside your bag and going along having a little happy tune. I just want to be a bard. That's what I'm revealing here. I don't know how to end this video. The end, I think. Yeah, I would say that's the end. Cool.